So I've begun reading a book called Aryanity at the request of a viewer of mine, and I want to explain, yes, so far the book appears good with the migrations of the different people, etc. One of the things that I wanted to do a quick analysis of this, because this is a problem we run into with new religions pretending to be old religions, and new belief systems pretending to be old belief systems, and things that are pretending to be based on science, which are based on ideology. And this happened with creativity. Creativity, I think, was the perfect religion for a racially conscious white people. But it became mired in looking toward the past. This is what happens with everything. What I want to point out is what we know is a lot of people that we thought were white aren't white in the past. Now, yes, the Aryan invasion of the Indian subcontinent was white people, okay? We know that. But there are other groups of people, such as the Jomon and the Ainu people of Japan and Okinawa Prefecture and parts of Russia. We know they were proto-Australoids, okay? The Chechapoya, as far as I know, there's never been any extensive genetic research on the Chechapoya of Peru. But a lot of people like to pretend, especially some Peruvians that like to fancy themselves as Vikings or something of that nature, like to pretend that the Chechapoya were whites. Well, there's not really any proof that they were, but what there is proof of is that there is Australoid DNA in isolated indigenous populations in South America. Now, I'm not saying that this disproves any of the book Arianity yet. I haven't gotten thoroughly into it, although some of the things seem to stick out as the we was stuff. And I'm going to get into this. I don't think we was is a pretty thing to wear. I don't think it looks good on anybody because it looks pathetic. Instead of we are, we say we was. And we was doesn't look very good. Okay? And this happens throughout various cultures. Particularly, I see it in the Hispanic culture a lot. We was Spaniards. I did a whole playlist, We was Spaniards. I took it down because I didn't want to excite the censors because the purges. And that's what gets me in trouble with these videos, is whenever I do a video like this, it tends to rile up the YouTube censors. So I have to tread very lightly with how I discuss these things. A lot of the science in the book, that we are stuff, the stuff that actually is accurate about skull shape, brain size, brain structure, thinking patterns, etc., I can't discuss that. I can only discuss that very limitedly, and I have to be very careful how I discuss that because I already know that gets me in trouble with the YouTube purgers. Okay? It doesn't mean it's not true. It's true. There's mountains of evidence to prove it, but for whatever reason, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, etc., they don't like that information. You can find National Institute of Health research to prove it. You can find all sorts of research that proves it. It's very good science. Can't talk about it, unfortunately. But a lot of the speculative science, they used to think that these mummies in China, and I even made a video regarding the Book of Mormon. They used to think that these Chinese mummies, that they were, well, not Chinese, but they were in the territory that is now China. They used to think they were Caucasian. Now we know they were a racially distinct group, a biologically distinct, isolated group in that region. Too many people, this is the thing with genetics, it kind of tosses out the concept of skull shape, eye color, hair color, etc. because there are genetic factors. You have to understand the phenotype is not the genotype. Two vastly different genotypes can have vastly different phenotypes. A lot of times you'll see that with what people that call themselves Afro-Latino. they'll find out that they're predominantly Caucasian, they're predominantly Spanish. Now, the thing is with this too is, again, this is the we was. Just because somebody's predominantly Caucasian doesn't make them Caucasian. Just because somebody's predominantly black does not make them black. Just because somebody's predominantly Asian does not make them Asian. And I think all groups of people, Caucasian and otherwise, would really do well to take a lesson of we are instead of we was, and we are, but what do we want to become in the future? Because you can't look to the future if you can't see the present. And that's the danger, I think, of a lot of this we was stuff. Whether it's coming from the creativity religion, whether it's coming from any of these various belief systems. Wicca was particularly sad, a sad religion in the sense that by it saying it was the old religion, when it was clearly a new religion, a new synthesis of religion based on, at the time, loosely based on cultural anthropological research. We was is not we are, and it is not it is a distinctly new religion. Thelema, Satanism, we are. Satanism and Thelema, we are. It is in the present. It is in the present tense. So you can look at Satanism, and you can look at Thelema, and you can be a Thelemite, or you can be a Satanist, and you can say, this is where I am, and I want to go here. Cosmotheism is similar. You are here in the present, and you can go there in the future. But when you are pretending to be something you're not, and a lot of people are pretending to be what they are not, it becomes messy, because especially when you assign emotions to it. You see this with the Black Hebrew Israelites, you see this with the Nation of Islam, you see this with a lot of groups that it has destroyed their identity, and they identify as a false thing. The Hoteps is another example. And when you're identifying as something false, it does not synthesize well into the present. So with the Chechapoya, what I would say is, you see great skin tone variances, hair color variances, and eye color variances amongst modern Australoid people in Australia, New Zealand, etc. But some groups, like the Ainu, appear very light, okay? And these are proto-Australoids. As I said, there has been Australian Aborigine DNA in South American, indigenous American populations that is not present in Central or North America, which gives them a distinctly genetic difference. It gives them a distinct genetic difference from other indigenous Americans. And this is important to understand. You also see these Australoid traits, or Australoid genes in, of course, the Indian subcontinent, where they're very prevalent, but also in Japan and the Philippines and Taiwan and etc., etc., etc. So you see a lot of coastal Asiatic people that have these Australoid genes also. So my point is it becomes, see, the Australoids do have a more similar facial structure, bone structure, like body structure to Caucasoids, but they're not Caucasoid. And this is where everything becomes a big mess, and a lot of people like to jump to conclusions to give credence to their pet theories. And what we were is not as important as what we are. This is one of the reasons I just have to get the money together to get a genetic test done. I really want to get a genetic test done and read my genetic test on here. Because as I said, my mother's maternal line came from Brazil. They said they were Italian. I think they're mestizos. But the point is, for all I know, my Brazilian family, I could be black, I could be Amerindian, part Amerindian, I could be any number of East Indian. Brazil is a very diverse melting pot of people. And I could be any number of those things. But what we was is not important as what we is. And that's what people need to understand is, and this is what has, I think, crippled white unity in the United States as well as throughout the world. White people are so concerned about every little minute detail. Hispanics aren't, okay? For the most part, American blacks aren't, okay? So it keeps the white people from uniting for a greater cause. This is why I gave up on any type of white unity or working with white people or working for white people. I wasted a good portion of my life thinking in racialistic terms, thinking in terms of white and non-white and things of this nature, and it really did not do me any good. Okay, it did not do me any good to hold these beliefs. And it's not even that these beliefs are necessarily false, but they're outmoded beliefs that they're not getting me anywhere. They're not getting us anywhere as a people. And it's not that necessarily that people have to stop thinking racialistically, but they do need to start thinking about what is a better way to look at this. Do we want to look at the here and now, the we are? That's why I keep trying to show the difference between an American people and European people. People that say European American aren't American. Okay? White Americans are not European. We are a distinct ethnic group that rose up within the Americas. Amongst the white Americans, there are distinct regional ethnic groups amongst all throughout the United States. But we are a united ethnic group, and until white Americans can actually say, yes, we are a distinct ethnic group, distinctly different from our European forebears, there is no hope for the American people. And if there is no hope for the American people, there is no hope for whites throughout the world, in my opinion. That's my opinion. And then you have people like, for example, and I'm not going to get into that because that might get me banned, but I was going to explain the ethnic and racial characteristics of, say, Hungarians and various Slavic people and other people of the Balkan region and the Caucasus region and things. People do not understand. See, the thing is, if you don't study anthropology, you're not going to get this stuff. And the other thing is, and I'm not an expert on genetic anthropology, but I did study a lot of physical anthropology, okay, which is being outmoded by genetic anthropology. But the other thing is, in the end of the book, now I didn't get a chance to look at it, it is going to go over the Aryan occult system, which is laughable. That it's a laughable system. Because what it is Aryan imagery put onto Jewish, extremely Jewish concepts of the occult. And that, if you don't study the occult, you wouldn't recognize that. But I've been studying the occult since I was a small child. There is a distinct difference between the Kabbalah and the magical systems of Scandinavia. And the Germanic occult systems of the Third Reich are not Germanic. They're not Scandinavian. They're not Nordic. They are Jewish with these things superimposed over the top. And that's all for this video. I hope I didn't offend anybody. I'm going to be as honest as I can and as fair as I can with the book. So far, the information looks good, but a lot of it is mired in that we was mindset. And that we was mindset is a destructive mindset. It is not a constructive mindset. And it is the mindset that has undone the doings of a lot of great people like GLR, like Clausen, like Dr. Pierce. It's undone a lot of these people's work. And a lot of these people's work, unfortunately, has been responsible for the we was mindset. It's been mired in the we was mindset. And we have to cast out that we was mindset for the we are mindset and the we will be mindset. And that's all for this video.